Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, Bruce. How are you on this fine day?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much.
Very good to hear.
Well, one tries. Now, as you know, every episode of this, which is called Factoraly, we take a different subject each week, and we either make big subjects very small or small subjects very big. You've committed, listener, to half an hour of your life to us.
There's no turning back now. You're in it now.
We do appreciate that half an hour that you're spending with us.
Thank you. Let's all sit together. Just us, the two of us and the one of you. Let's sit down. Let's have a nice cup of tea. Let's have a chin wag.
And we won't smell you later.
No, we won't.
But you might smell what's going on in this podcast, because this subject is going to be about perfume.
Perfume?
Yes.
How exciting.
Well, is it about perfume or is it about fragrance?
There's an overlap, isn't there?
There is an overlap. There's a difference, because perfume is sort of made up of essential oils and fragrances.
Yes.
And I discovered that there are major differences between the two. I mean, an essential oil is like one single thing.
Yes.
Whereas a fragrance is like a combination of lots of different things.
Well, a fragrance, the word fragrance at its very heart simply means a smell. So
yes.
We're thinking of a manufactured, produced fragrance.
Yes.
But fragrance, you could smell a rose and say, oh, that's got a nice fragrance.
Would it smell as sweet if it
as a
wasn't
rose
called
with any other name? It might do. I'm not sure. If you sniffed a rose and called it a Brian, would you be slightly turned off? I don't know.
I've brought you a dozen Brians.
A dozen red Brians. Brians are red, violets are blue. Doesn't really work, does it?
So perfume, I'm assuming the origin is pretty obvious.
Go on, what do you think it is?
Well, it's through smoke.
Very good, yeah. Yeah, so the word perfume, written as it is, first appears in the early to mid-1500s. It comes from French, parfum, which comes from an obsolete Italian, parfumare, which comes from Latin, perfumum, which means through smoke.
Yes.
And it's called that because originally, we all think of perfume as being a smelly liquid that you spray upon yourself to make yourself smell nice.
Yeah.
Originally, perfume was essentially air freshener.
Okay.
It was something you released into the air. You burnt incense, or you burnt a little lump of resin or wood or whatever it might be in some kind of burner, and the smoke releases into the air, leaving a lovely fragrance in the air.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we've sort of come back to that with these room fragrances with sticks that stick out of bottles.
Yeah, we have incense burners. We have scented candles now. We have those plug-in wafty air fresheners that you get whenever you go to the loo in a pub.
But is that perfume, though?
Well, depends how long ago to the etymology we go. It is technically perfume. It is a substance that's created to smell.
Okay.
So let's say it is. I'm not suggesting that we should all go around spraying airwick on our necks.
Well, exactly, haze or something like that. I think that we need to define what we're going to be talking about in this episode, because there is perfume in pretty much everything, isn't it? I mean, even in, I know that the difference between a biological and a non-biological clothes cleaning liquid is that the non-biological one, the healthy one, doesn't have perfume in it.
Right. They're scented and non-scented.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's the scent that makes it artificial and all that stuff.
Okay, so are we talking about scent, fragrance, aroma, or perfume?
Okay.
Take your pick.
I think because we've called this episode Perfume and people have read that on the title,
yes,
that we should talk about perfume.
Thank goodness for that. That's exactly what I researched as well. Whew, that was close.
Yes.
There's a lot of crossover. We've already done an episode on smells. We talked about the ways in which animals smell each other and their surroundings.
Yes.
Some animal products have in the past been used to create elements of perfume.
Yes, civet things.
Musk.
Yes, all sorts of things.
I hadn't realised that musk originally came from a secretion from the gland of a musk deer.
Yes.
That's why it's called musk, because it's named after the deer. They took the secretion from it and went, that smells quite
interesting.
Musky. Yes. Let's use it. And therefore the substance became musk.
That's why it's called musk.
That's why it's
from
called
the
musk.
musk
Yes,
deer.
Exactly that,
right.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
By the 19th century, they decided that actually killing deer in order to use their their gland secretions was a bit mean, and they started using alternative methods, so they stopped it. But yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, because there was a lot of animals involved originally. I talked about civets. I mean, there's a cat called a civet, and they farm the musk from the civets. And they don't actually kill the civets necessarily.
Right. Okay.
But they're, if you're a cat person, then you wouldn't enjoy. These days, they can manufacture pretty much any smell chemically.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So they don't need to harm any animals.
Yeah. Indeed.
No animals were harmed in the production of this episode of Factoraly.
I mean, Bruce and I are sitting here a little bit uncomfortably, but we sacrifice ourselves for our art. Right, so having established that we are talking about perfume, i.e. the stuff you put on yourself to make yourself smell nice.
Yes.
Have you discovered where that all began specifically?
There is a woman mentioned who I presumed that you would go into, this Egyptian woman who...
And therefore you left it alone so that I would do it?
Yeah.
Excellent. We worked so well. I knew you were going to do that, which is why I researched her. Oh... So this, this isn't the first use of perfume. They used it in ancient Egypt. They used it in ancient China. But the first recorded reference to perfume being what we're talking about here, as I mentioned about the stuff that you release the aroma into the room to make the room smell nice. Obviously, things like incense has been burnt in religious ceremonies, you know. But the first recorded mentioning of this is from 1200 BC, in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. Mm-hmm. And it was a lady called Taputi, who was sort of written down in records as being the overseer of the house. And she did lots of sort of household stuff, but including making the place smell nice. And there are engravings on these clay tablets, which look a little bit hieroglyphical, of her, saying the ingredients that she uses to make these aromas for the room. And they include flowers, oils, tree sap, myrrh, horseradish, surprisingly.
Because I know that there are some researchers who are trying to recreate Cleopatra's perfume.
Oh, really?
And they've found sort of remnants of various, including myrrh and all the other things you've just mentioned.
Yes.
And they're actually aiming to make a perfume, which is Cleopatra's perfume. She soaked her sails in perfume when the wind was blowing towards Rome.
Oh, wow.
So that the Romans could smell this wonderful aroma coming towards them.
Oh.
And it was actually Cleopatra's sails were blowing this amazing smell towards Rome.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that clever? Do you wear perfume? Do you have a signature smell?
So I'm currently wearing an aftershave called Happy by Clinique.
Okay.
That's my current favourite. It's got citrusy notes to it. It's rather pleasant.
Well, I wear one called Vetiver by Creed.
Right.
It's lovely. It's really nice.
I've smelt you in person. It's very nice.
Thank you very much. And I thought, I wonder what's in that. So I went to their website and had a look.
Yes.
And the ingredients of Vetiver by Creed is that they don't just use the leaves of the vetiver plant, they use the roots as well. So you get a sort of more earthy note to it as well. We'll talk about notes in a minute.
We will.
But I looked at the ingredients and it's alcohol, perfume, water, limonene, linalool, citral, geromol, citronelloy, coumarin, eugenol, isoeugenol. And I thought, I'm going to look up what each of these things is.
Oh, my goodness, you were thorough. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're all synthetic, aren't they?
Yes, they are. But a lot of them are synthetics based on natural products. So they're synthetics that give you the smell of, limonene is lemon, basically. Citronelloy is lemon. Eugenol is that sweet yet spicy smell that you get. And it's basically, it's all created to produce this smell which I rather like.
Which smells of Bruce.
The great smell of Bruce.
Well, there is an aftershave called Brute. It's only a little bit different from that, isn't it?
Yes.
I don't know about you. As soon as I think of perfume, I automatically think of France.
Yes.
It's just the centre of perfumery. You know, all of the brands, all of the top names come from there.
Yeah.
Jean-Paul Gaultier, Chanel, Coty. They all come from Paris, don't they?
Yes, they generally are very French. Maybe it's because the French smell.
It might be. Do you know what? I tried to find this out as to why France was such a hotbed for it. It's just one of those things. It just happens to have landed there and happens to have caught on. It, having started out in Mesopotamia, it then sort of spread throughout the rest of the world slowly, bit by bit, through trade routes. It landed in Europe. It went to Spain, Italy, France. For whatever reason, it really latched on in France. But back in those days, you know, apparently Louis XIV, King Louis of France, was a big advocate of perfume. He, you know, all of his palace rooms, bedrooms, all of his courtiers were all sort of, you know, regularly perfumed in order to make the place smell opulent and delicious. It was very expensive. You know, back in the days before the synthetics, you had to get these natural ingredients. You know, you had to squeeze the fruits, you had to press the flowers, you had to extract the oils. Very, very timely and costly process.
Yes. Have a guess.
Oh no, I hate this.
How many rose petals, or how much weight of rose petals you would need to make just 1 kilo of rose oil?
Okay, so 1 kilo of rose oil.
Yeah.
How much oil would you get out of a single petal? I'd say probably 10 to 1. I'd say 10 kilos of rose petals for 1 kilo of perfume.
Yeah, you're quite close.
Oh, really?
It's 4 tons.
Okay, so not that close, really. 4 tons of rose petals.
4 tons of rose petal to make 1 kilo of rose oil.
I can't even picture what 4 tons of rose petals looks like. That's big.
It's a lot. And that's generally why, you know, the better the ingredients that go into the perfume, the more expensive it is. You can recreate this stuff with chemicals.
Yes.
But if you're going for the real deal, you know, it's really quite a process.
Huh. It wasn't until the late 1800s that they started experimenting with synthetic smells. Again, in France. It was a chap called Paul Parquet. And he just sort of started thinking about the fact, well, all of these smells exist in natural things. If we break them down to their smallest possible parts, can we just extract the chemical that smells a bit like this, mix it with a chemical that smells a bit like that, and then ta-da, you've got something that smells like a rose.
Yes.
It's cheaper, it's more easily created, and it can be mass-produced and sold to a wider market.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that Louis had his own signature fragrance?
Eau de Louis. I hope so.
But isn't it interesting how that's now something you find in shops? There are sort of corporate scents.
Yes, of course. Yes.
That you go into a shop and it smells. You know, it smells like the shop that you're in. You know, it'll smell like, you know, Hugo Boss, or it'll smell like Chanel or whatever it is.
Back when I used to be a postman, I used to pick up the outgoing mail from a Ferrari showroom. And they had both room fragrance and little bottles of perfume that had been hand-curated to smell like Ferrari. Not like a Ferrari. They didn't really smell of that, you know, new car smell or fresh leather or anything like that. It was just a generic, pleasant smell, but apparently specifically made to represent Ferrari, the brand.
Yeah, I once stayed in a hotel, and the whole chain smells the same way.
Oh, really?
They pump it into the air conditioning system.
Oh, wonderful!
So you always know that you're in that brand of hotel.
Yeah, I know chains of pubs and restaurants who all use the same brand of hand soap. So you know when you've washed your hands in a Fuller's pub as opposed to a Young's pub.
Right? Yes, of course. I mean, in fact, I have an interest in a restaurant, and we have a specific smell of our restaurant as well. Yeah.
A very fine restaurant it is too.
Of course, you have to keep the perfume in something once you've made it.
Yes, you can't just have it spill out all over the floor, can you?
And one of the things you can put it in is a bottle.
Yes.
And perfume bottles are amazing. If you ever see a collection of perfume bottles, they are really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of effort goes into it. And you can just tell one from another. Even these days, they're a signature, like Jean-Paul Gaultier has his, like, sort of sailors and things.
That's right, yeah.
And but there used to be like a couple of companies that made these beautiful glass bottles. So Baccarat is a very famous crystal glass manufacturer, and they once made a perfume called Joy, which I remember, by Jean Patou. Mm-hmm. And this perfume came in the most beautiful bottle by Baccarat, and to make the perfume, it took. I mean, it's quite a small bottle of perfume. It was 10,000 jasmine flowers and 28 dozen roses.
Oh my goodness
went into
me!
Making this perfume.
That is It's no surprise, is it really, then, that the stuff was so expensive? If you are just using the essential oils and no synthetics.
10,000 jasmine flowers.
Flippin'
Crazy.
heck.
And so they made bottles, and Lalique, who are very famous for making glassware and lead glass. I mean, they made all those mascots on the front of cars and stuff in the 30s.
Oh, yes.
But they also make the most beautiful glassware, including perfume bottles.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, and I'll tell you what, I'll put pictures of what these bottles look like on the show notes on Factoraly.com.
Factoraly.com?
That's the one. What's interesting is, though, that Baccarat and Lalique have both decided that they were going to make their own perfumes. So you can buy
really?
Lalique perfume now and Baccarat perfume.
Right. So you used to have a perfume manufacturer whose bottles were made by a bottle manufacturer, and the bottle manufacturer have now manufactured their own perfume to go into their own bottles.
Yes.
Gosh, that's come full circle.
Do you know the difference between like a perfume and an eau de parfum and an eau de toilette?
No, I don't. Tell me.
So a parfum is a concentrate. It's always a concentrate. So a parfum is over 20% concentrate.
Okay.
An eau de parfum is diluted, so it's down to 15%.
Oh, I see.
And an eau de toilette is diluted further, down to 10%.
Okay.
And the difference is how long it lasts on your skin. So a parfum should last, all day.
Yeah.
Whereas an eau de parfum is probably about 6 hours on your skin. And an eau de toilette is like 3 hours on your skin before it fades.
I see. Right. So when you go to a shop and you buy an eau de toilette,
yes,
that's the reason why it's quite a lot cheaper than something that just says perfume.
It's basically a 10% concentrate as opposed to a 20% concentrate.
Okay, that makes sense. I looked into the origin of cologne.
Oh, yes.
The vast majority of information I found is about perfume, traditionally worn by women. Perfume wasn't really worn by chaps until the late 1800s, early 1900s even. Mm-hmm. It was a feminine thing. I associate the word cologne as being akin to aftershave. It's a gentleman's scent.
Yes.
Cologne was created first in 1709 in Cologne in Germany. It was created by an Italian perfumer called Giovanni Maria Farina, and originally called Eau de Cologne. And it wasn't intended for chaps at the time. It was just a lighter. You sort of said the concentrates came down to 10%. This stuff, Eau de Cologne, had between 2 and 4% concentrate. So it was really, really light, really mild, really subtle. And that was just what he decided to invent. So that was in 1709. It wasn't really until 150 odd years later that men started going, do you know what? I'd like to have some of this stuff.
Yes.
And slowly, the word cologne became associated with men's perfume.
Yes, and the pain that you get when you slap it on your neck having had a shave.
Yes. I'm thinking Kevin McAllister in Home Alone.
Yes, exactly. We talked earlier about all this notes stuff. What do you know what the difference is between the different notes?
Yeah, so I did a bit of a Google on this. Other search engines are available.
No, they're not.
You don't say I Yahoo'd it anymore, do you?
No. Yes, I asked
Jeeves. So because there are so many combinations of different ingredients in perfumes, some of them seem to last longer than others. Some of them are lighter or heavier. And that's what the word notes refers to.
Right.
I found a wonderful website, which we will put a link to on the show notes. It goes into so much detail. It just lists every natural substance that could ever possibly be used to add a smell to a perfume. We've talked about the fact that these things contain a combination of hundreds of ingredients.
Yes, yeah.
And you can click on any one of these items. You can click on a rose or you can click on chocolate, whatever, and it will tell you all the commercially available perfumes that have that scent in it.
How wild.
Fascinating website.
That sounds like one of our regular rabbit holes.
It does. It really does. It's fantastic.
So how do each of those things work with these notes?
Right. So these notes, it kind of sounds like quite a musical thing. You think of playing several notes to make a lovely chord. So you put in several fragrance notes to make a lovely combination. So it's divided into top notes, which are quite light and fresh, but that particular part of the smell doesn't last very long. It's the thing you smell when you first spray the perfume on, and that lasts about 10 minutes and then it sort of fades away. So top notes include things like citrus and sort of lighter scented flowers.
Right, okay.
Then you have middle notes, also known as heart notes, which is the real sort of basis, the sense, the center of what a perfume smells like.
Yeah.
Those notes last for 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
They include things like rose, jasmine, lavender, cinnamon, nutmeg, slightly more robust smells. And then you have base notes, which you can smell once the top and the middle notes have evaporated.
Yeah.
Those are the things that last up to 24 hours. And they're rich, heavy, deep, earthy things like cedarwood, musk, vanilla. So you sort of layer up these notes in, any different amount of combinations and coordinations to make your own fragrance.
Interesting. I've been flagrantly using a term, and I had no idea what it actually meant. And I'll bet you a lot of our listeners don't know what it meant either.
I'm excited now.
Okay.
This sounds like a quiz to me, Bruce.
So you know how perfumes smell different on different people at different times of day?
Yes.
Do you know why?
Well, I used to think it was because the perfume reacts with the heat of the body, your own sweat, etc., and therefore the combination of the two changes. What I'm now wondering is whether it is because each of these levels of notes have evaporated at different points through the day, and therefore what you can smell is the leftovers that haven't.
Well, that's right. The evaporation is something that happens with perfumes anyway. But the big thing that makes a difference is the acidity or alkalinity of your skin.
Right.
So it's talking about the pH value of your skin. Now, I've been flaunting pH around, and I never realised what it actually meant, what it stood for.
No, I don't know what it stands for either. It's the opposite end of the scale from acid, isn't it? But I don't know what pH stands for.
pH, the actual scale is called the pH scale.
Oh, yeah, you're right, with acidity on one end and alkaline on the other end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So that's potential hydrogen. There you go. You've learned something today.
Potential hydrogen.
pH.
Well, who'd have thought?
So generally speaking, skin is about 4.7 to 5.75.
Right.
So it's acidic.
Okay.
And what you're aiming for is a very neutral, like a 7 in the perfume. So the 7 is reacting with the acidity of the 4.7.
I see.
5.7. So, but if you have a more alkali skin, or in the case of some women, the hormones will change the acidity or the alkalinity of your skin.
Yeah.
So it can be that perfumes smell differently at different times of the month.
Oh, I see. How interesting. And I would imagine things like your diet, how much you sweat, just your own personal chemical makeup will change that pH.
Yes.
So it stands to reason that people would have perfumes that go specifically with them as an individual. Something that smells good on one person might not smell so good on another.
I mean, I think that's why and why most people generally stick to one particular scent, because that's the one that they know. I know somebody for whom that they can use the most expensive perfumes in the world, and like within 5 minutes it smells like soap.
Right, okay. Isn't that interesting?
And so they had to look around and find specific fragrances and perfumes that didn't do that.
Now, there'll be a scientist somewhere, won't there, who says, right, your skin pH level is this, therefore you would be better suited to that.
Well, there are perfumiers who will do that for you.
Right.
We did mention earlier the most famous perfume in the world.
Chanel
number 5.
We did indeed.
Why is it number 5?
I was just going to ask you, do you know why 1 to 4 weren't so good?
No, I don't.
Neither do I. I didn't look that up.
Do you think Coco just went, nope, 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 nope. Oh, this one's all right.
Yes. Or just, I'm bored now. Let's stick with this one. I'll tell you who might know the answer to something that we haven't researched.
Ah, you're talking about the Factoralites.
The Factoralites. They'll know. We'll have someone listening to this who's a professional perfumier or who has, just bought an awful lot of cologne themselves. They'll know the answer.
Yes. And not all perfume smells of perfume.
Okay.
For example, there is a perfume which smells of Pizza Hut.
No.
So Pizza Hut, to celebrate their 10,000th follower on Facebook or something, released 110 bottles of Pizza Hut perfume. And there's perfume that smells like books. So if you've got somebody you know who's madly into old books or loves the smell of a library, which obviously you and I do, you can buy them a thing called Paper Passion, which is a perfume that smells of old books. There's another one. The Federation of Bakers came up with a eau de toast.
That's fantastic.
Some people say it smells of burnt toast. Other people say it just smells. It's got that nice caramelly smell.
Couldn't that be worrying? If you were walking around the streets of London and everyone passing
you thought you were having a stroke.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Oh my goodness, that should come with a health warning. Wow.
There's one called Money, which smells of freshly minted US currency bills.
That's very precise.
And there's a British one, which is Blue Cheese by Stilton.
Ugh.
Why you would want to smell of Stilton, I have no idea. But there is a perfume that's made by Stilton that's called Blue Cheese.
Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because there are things, depending on what you do, where you go, who you are, you could get smells from the natural environment sticking on you, couldn't you? If you're
so you smell of smoke, for example, if you come out of
right
when you used to come out of a smoky pub or something like that.
Yes. And, some people would hate that, but, sort of being wreathed in the smell of pipe tobacco, something like that. Or as you said,
the great smell of uncles.
Yes, a very avuncular scent.
Yes.
If you tinker with vintage cars, you might come away smelling of engine oil or
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
So recreating those things could sort of recreate that nostalgic, he smells of my Uncle Mark. How nice.
These days, you can buy perfumes from famous people. There's like celebrity perfumes.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the first one I came across was from 1957, which was Elvis Presley's Teddy Bear.
Oh, no, really?
Elvis was very, very good on the merch front.
Yeah, yeah.
So they came up with a fragrance called Teddy Bear in 1957.
Wonderful.
And most of the modern celebrity fragrances are from the 21st century. So they all start quite late. But there were a couple which I thought would appeal to you.
Go on.
And I will give you the name. They came out in 1995. I will give you the two names, and you've got to guess who they were. There was a his perfume and a her perfume.
Right.
So the his perfume was called Amphibia, and the hers perfume was called Moi.
Amphibia,
moi. And Moi.
Frog, me. Oh, Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Yes.
No, really? No. That's... No.
Amphibia and Moi.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and they're not the only famous people, obviously. I looked at how many different fragrances. Beyoncé has 17 different fragrances.
Oh, does she? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Jennifer Aniston has 9.
Oh.
But, then you start getting into the serious ones. Like Naomi Campbell, she's got 26 fragrances.
Yeah.
26 perfumes.
Yeah.
Paris Hilton, 27 perfumes. Jennifer Lopez, 32. 32 perfumes that Jennifer Lopez has launched. Britney Spears has 35. And Shakira is, as far as I was able to find, was the person who has the most perfumes. Shakira has 36 perfumes.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that none of these people are professional perfumiers.
No.
Have any idea how to make a perfume.
No.
Their marketing department has just teamed up with a perfume manufacturer and slapped that person's name on it.
It's like Antonio Banderas has gone to, or some perfume company's gone to Antonio Banderas and said, "Do you like the smell of this?" And he's gone, "Yeah, fine. Can we call it after you?" "Sure."
Yes, exactly that, yeah.
And they did that 8 times because there's
fine.
8 different fragrances that Antonio Banderas has launched.
Wonderful.
And then there's Donald Trump, but we won't talk
Has
about
he got
Donald Trump.
fragrance?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Donald Trump, the fragrance. It's in a bottle that looks a bit like one of his buildings.
Okay. It's the best fragrance in the world.
There are some great reviews. I urge you to go and look at some of the reviews of Donald Trump, the fragrance. They're not good.
Well, that all solves what we're doing with our evenings. Thank you.
So, Simon.
Yes.
Guinness. I know it smells really nice.
Yes.
But are there any records?
Yes, there are. Rather unsurprisingly, most of the Guinness records around perfume are the most expensive.
Shall we do one of our competitions?
Why, have you found this as well?
I've got one which I thought was expensive.
Okay.
And it's got a great name.
Oh, that's not where I'm going. Okay, right. So, in that case, on the count of 3, how much is the most expensive perfume that you've found versus mine?
In dollars or pounds?
Dollars.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
1.29 million.
100,000. Okay, yours wins. How many?
$1.29 million.
That's a lot, isn't it? Go on.
Well, it's by a company called Nalil.
Right.
And most of the cost is the bottle, as you would expect.
Yes.
There's a Jewish expression called schmuck, which means idiot.
Yes. Look at that schmuck.
Yeah, exactly. And this stuff is called shmuk.
That's unfortunate.
SHUMUK.
Okay, that's very
So
close.
I guess if you're going to spend $1.29 million on a bottle of perfume,
yes,
you've got to be a bit of a schmuck.
That's fantastic.
So what was the price you mentioned?
A mere sniff at $205,000.
Okay, so what's that?
Right, so this is the Guinness record for the most expensive commercially available perfume. There are one-offs, but the most expensive commercially available perfume was created by a chap called Clive Christian, and it was called Clive Christian No. 1 for men. Catchy. I could,
because today I've got that kind of a voice. I was out last night quite late, so my voice is very bassy today. So I can do that. No. 1 for men.
Very good. That was lovely. I enjoyed that. So the stuff itself, in its basic form, costs only $2,355 per bottle. But in 2005, they made a special edition called Clive Christian No. 1 Imperial Majesty.
Oh, very nice.
Which cost $205,000 per bottle. Again, purely because the bottle was a little bit fancier.
Yeah.
Part of that cost was also down to the fact that you had this stuff delivered to you by a driver in a Bentley.
Did they leave the Bentley with you as well?
No, sadly not. No, that would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be a bargain. But yes, Harrods sold this special edition. The bottle had 5-carat white diamonds encrusted onto it. It had an 18-carat gold collar. It was produced by Harrods and delivered to you in a Bentley. That's everything that's wrong with Harrods. Wonderful. Well, that's I've run out of smelliness. Thank you very much. It's all faded off me now. Yes, my high notes have evaporated. My middle notes have worn off. And all you're left with is the bass. My bass notes are just stinky. I'm assuming that people have already subscribed to the podcast, and if you haven't, then hit that button and please subscribe to us. We would really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Go and tell all your nerdy chums who love random facts about this podcast. Give us a 5-star review and leave us a note saying, this was the smelliest thing I've ever heard. Gosh, what a contradiction in terms. So that's the end of another action-packed episode of Factoraly. Please come again next time. We look forward to hearing you then. Or smelling you. Or smelling you, yes. Smell you later. Smell you later. Bye for now. Bye.